we have a very special guest. This is Rachel Prince from a company called Rentalpreneur. You probably already know her. She's all over the internet. She's a podcaster. She's a blogger. She's a YouTuber. She wrote a book, and she has an online training course that helps people decide whether or not the Airbnb business is the right business for them. I'm going to leave links in the show notes to everything that she's going to talk about today, because when this is over, you're going to want to go over and make yourself known and get to know her. Okay? She's an amazing person. So with that, please help me welcome Rachel Prince.
So I call myself Rachel the Rentalpreneur. I like the concept of the rentalpreneur, a rental entrepreneur, because I am an entrepreneur at heart. And that is something that means a lot to me. So I've always wanted to kind of run my own business. When I discovered Airbnb, the entrepreneurial facet mixed with Airbnb became the rentalpreneur. And that was, for me, just the best thing that could have ever happened in my life. I kind of felt like I fell in line with my purpose. I've also got my real estate license in Indianapolis or Indiana, and I used to have it in Colorado. So I like to call myself a B&B or an Airbnb Realtor. I specialize in helping my clients find Airbnb properties or vacation rental or short-term rental properties. And then we manage it here in Indianapolis with my property management company. So it's kind of a turnkey solution for a lot of my clients. I don't manage all the properties. I mostly manage luxury A-class properties that have a unique flair about them and some sort of twist and or are a real icon for Indianapolis, an attraction for Indianapolis, or something that I know people would just want to stay in here. So I also have a podcast on SoundCloud and iTunes. It's called the B&B Entrepreneur. And I basically interview hosts and influencers and other experts in technology who have companies that are helping vacation rental or short-term rental hosts, and we're helping the industry in some way. Short 30-minute podcast that really just explores some of the intricacies of running a B&B, being a mini hotelier, if you will.
Tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is just my YouTube channel. I started with YouTube. I started with this mug and being on video, and the podcast is so much easier and we get a lot better response, and the people that we feature on the podcast get a lot better response as well.
And you wrote a book.
Airbnb Mentality, that is the kind of the emotional side of running an Airbnb, and to help homeowners or people renting decide if they even want to get into it. You know, it's kind of the go before. I think a lot of people need that to decide and determine whether or not this is a path they want to embark upon. And so that kind of helps them figure out for themselves, is this the journey that I really want? Am I up for this? After they read that, they sometimes decide, yes, this is for me. They can take my online course. I just launched my online course, BuyBnB. BuyBnB is all about Airbnb real estate investing. Even if you don't buy something, you can still learn how to host on a vacation rental platform. Mostly I highlight Airbnb. Someone could sign up for that course, very easily learn how to do the model themselves and repeat it and grow their business. That's going to be turned into a book later. But right now, working on the online course and just launched it and very excited about it and getting some good feedback. It's a nice little animated, fun little video sequences, and people can listen to it like a podcast while they're driving in the car.
Well, tell us where to go to find that if somebody were interested in taking a look at that.
BuyBnB, BuyBnB.net. So BuyBnB.net.
This is fascinating. My goodness.
All of it's on rentalpreneur.com. Everything I try to put all in one location so people can really understand all the things that I'm working on.
Lots of hosts that are just getting involved in the Airbnb space run into problems like laundry, for example. And they are sitting there kind of like, okay, so I'm not the only one going through this problem, but how on earth am I supposed to flip a property really fast when I've got guests that are leaving and new guests that are arriving in a couple of hours, and it takes a couple of hours to do laundry? What on earth are you supposed to do about that?
That's something that I tell people in my book, the Airbnb mentality. I was like, if you're not up for that, this might not be the type of industry you want to get in on, because you have to be on your game. There's very little room for error with this whole thing. I do recommend that most hosts, if they're not going to be doing it themselves, that they work with a cleaner that they know very well, that they can communicate with on a day-to-day basis. It depends, right? If you're just doing one or two properties, it's a little bit easier to communicate with that cleaner and so on and so forth. However, as soon as you start to scale, that's when you have the most difficulty, the most challenges with your business. And, people wanting late checkouts and then you closing down the window to do those cleanings. But for the most part, I have a very close communication with my cleaners because I see them as a few key parts of this business. If you don't have the cleaner and the cleaner communication, your whole business can crumble in this industry.
So do you recommend having a cleaner that does the laundry, like a cleaner that cleans the property? Or would you recommend like a linen service to help bridge those gaps?
At first, I would say I recommend having a cleaner. If you're not cleaning it yourself, look, I've cleaned many toilets. Okay. I've made many beds. So I've changed many sheets. I've cleaned up things I didn't want to clean up. And that's how I started my business. When I found the right cleaners, I held on to them. You got to hold on to those guys and pay them well. You have to train them and you have to walk them through everything that you think needs to be addressed. And then if you're just shooting off the hip and you're just trying to just make it work as best you can, the problems will come up. They will just naturally arise and you can reverse engineer it that way. This is a natural progression. So you could just, clean your property and try to rush through them. If you have 3 properties to clean within that short window and you get to it and you do the best that you can, your next guest is going to give you feedback and you're going to be able to see where you went wrong. So every guest has a different vision of what cleanliness is. And not only with how they leave the place, but how they find the place when they arrive. And every cleaner has a different vision of what clean is too. They all use different products. They all think clean is this way, that way. Some cleaners like to, when you put the cleaner in the toilet bowl and then you flush it, it can still leave suds, right? And so those suds can be interpreted by a guest arriving that is urine. And just the other day, we had a guest who said there was someone left urine in the toilet. And, I was devastated because I saw it. And I know that my cleaner likes to leave it sudsy so that it looks like it's been cleaned, right? That's kind of a technique that some people do. But because it's kind of green and it can oxidize and probably look more yellow, it looks like urine, I think. And that's a problem.
Well, because it comes down to customer perception. And if the guests perceive that something is not clean or that the toilets weren't flushed or whatever, when they're arriving, instead of feeling like, oh, there's this special vacation place, then they're kind of like, what on earth?
So I actually did a video for him and I showed him what it looked like in my toilet. And I also kind of relaxed the next few days because I've only got 5 stars at this one unit. It happens to be my house. That was the comments came back on. I did tell my cleaners, make sure you flush the toilet and don't leave the cleaner in the bowl anymore. We have to watch out. So, but just fascinating stuff like this can tarnish your reputation as a 5-star host.
Isn't it interesting though, how you can have a perfect record in your Airbnb and then a customer comes in and one small thing like that can change the systems and the way that you operate from here forward because you don't want to recreate or let that situation reinvent itself in a future rating or review.
I feel a little heartbroken by how the world has come to this. You see a cobweb and people are so devastated, by their Airbnb. So I had to kind of figure out how to redirect the conversation. And there's 2 ways to do it. One is I address the issue based on, I apologize for the issue, definitely. And I also see if I can make up for it. That's the first approach to handling that type of situation when you have cleanliness issues. The second one is how can I, in my mind, shift the situation? Because if I dwell on the negative aspects of it, then that's usually what I get. And so as I tell, this is why the Airbnb Mentality book is kind of a cool take on all the Airbnb books out there, is because I teach people this mindset programming, this that we have ourselves. We tell ourselves these stories, we get into this negative spiral. And I think it's important for people to bring it back, turn it around, flip it. I call it the mindset barrier flip in my online course. And with that, I then say to the guests, What did you love about the space? Was there anything that you might have really enjoyed? Like, did you find the snacks, or how did you sleep? We get a lot of feedback on that bed. Or did you enjoy the Bluetooth speaker? I kind of try to redirect conversations, to the guests, show them the other fine attributes of the space without seeming obvious. But I also have to shift it in my mind. And I have to say to myself, I know he's working hard. He's working 16 hours a day. He's probably just stressed out. It's like you said, he arrived, he wanted it to be a certain level of cleanliness. There was something missing. Can I just in my mind put him at ease? And when I sent him the little video of the toilet bowl cleaner, he was like, oh, I hadn't even thought about it. I'm sorry about that. I was a little, So I felt, oh, thank God we made amends.
It's interesting because and I never really thought about it from the host's perspective, but from the house cleaner's perspective, there's a lot of taking it personally, because when you clean, you put your heart and soul into making sure the beds are, tightened a certain way and the pillows are sitting a certain way and the towels are folded a certain way. And you take pride in it because you are the product that you're delivering. And so a customer comes in and they start nitpicking or whatever, and you're like, oh my goodness. And I know a lot of house cleaners go home and they have not done that mind shift that you were talking about. And they're just frustrated. They're like, what on earth? I did my best. Like, and so I can understand how the host could also feel that same way.
It is true. And I tell my cleaners, will defend you. I'm on your side. However, we just have to follow a certain standard. So I may come down hard sometimes. However, I will still defend you. And I usually do. And in this case, it was a conversation that me and the cleaner have. And we say, for any of those cleaners out there who are having struggles with their clients, or if you are working with a property manager for a vacation rental, it's kind of nice to know you have at least someone to talk to say, those guests, they can be so nitpicky sometimes. And yeah, you did do your best, and know that you did, and that's fine, and not take it personally because the guests just sometimes go overboard on complaining when really there's so much more to the house that they could be choosing to focus on.
Alrighty, and that was Rachel Prince from Rentalpreneur. I tell you what, I learned so much talking to her today, and I know this is just the tip of the iceberg. So thank you, Rachel, for joining us.